Well, let's start with, just a couple of things for us to think about. Um, yeah, I appreciate everybody being here. And thanks for making time for us. I'm really glad to have our three guests here today that are gonna share again, more kind of that deeper level about the Bridging Forward program that we've been talking about. So we did, 2 weeks ago, learned kind of a big overview. And last week we had, some of the allies who are participating in the program, answer questions and share their perspective. And so this week we'll have the actual participants who represent diverse experiences, and I'll introduce them both all here, just so you can. I got it. Um, what's cool about the three of the folks that have volunteered to be here today is they all have different perspectives. So Josh Nikas, who's here, Josh, got started with the program really in the very beginning. And now does outreach work in the community and is part of our staff team. So not only has he been part of the process when we were kind of just getting things going, helping us think it through, but then has been a real advocate in the community, and I'm sure talk about that. LaDonna's part of the second group that's in process right now. She's gonna, their group finishes in May. And represents, somebody that has older kids, which was new for us, to just be thinking about, okay, how do we change the program or shift it up, or just be thinking about that as well. And Sierra came into the first group just for younger kids, and has been, really just not only a great participant throughout the whole thing, but has been a great community, enlarger in lots of different ways. So they'll all, share a little bit more about themselves, but so you know who you're looking at. Right? Who you're looking at here. Okay. I'm gonna start us out with just a little thought. This whole thing, and I think the idea with what they're doing in the church and with the scripture and the lessons, and with what we're doing here to share with you about Bridging Forward is to really, throughout the whole community, is to kind of open the doors on the people we walk by that we don't see, the impact that we can have in the community when we invest in individuals, the ripples that come from that. And the spiritual aspect of it too, which should be appropriate for the church. So this is a quote that hangs on my wall, and I think it just, for me, it speaks to what we're trying to do here. It's from Annie Dillard. We live in all we see. The hidden shows up in too plain sight. It lives captive on the face of the obvious, the people, events, and things of the day, to which we as sophisticated children have long since become oblivious. What a hideout! Holiness lies spread and born on the surface of time and stuff like color. For me, it may not be speaking to poverty, but it speaks to, we get used to so much, right? We get used to doing things in so many different ways. And Bridging Forward and what we're doing here within the community and the conversations that we get to have and the ripples we get to see in people just gives us an opportunity to have things outside of our normal and have us really question and think about, hey, this is what we've been looking for all the time. It's right here. And we just need to pay a little bit of attention to some things. So before we get into having the circle leaders speak, I wanted to share this thing that's in front of you because we talked a little bit about the results. And so everybody that was here last week, you got to see some of the results, but then I wanted to talk about the return on investment results. So I mentioned this before, and I'm going to share it now so I make sure we have time for it. This is a lot of information actually, but I'm just going to kind of walk you through it. So if you look, I'll put it up on the over here. So we started the program, and we talked about this before. We've had two groups going, and with each group, there has been 10 people that started out. And so you see that number where it says started the program 20. After 3 months, they did have 3 months of training. That number dropped. We had some folks that dropped out, and then after 6 months, it drops again. But there's a group right now that's at the 6-month mark. So it didn't drop out between 6 and 12. 12 is Sierra's group. Okay, so they've completed the program. There's 6 people now in LaDonna's group that they'll complete the program. So in 6 more months, we'll have 6 more months of data. But it captures there in the white area the average earnings, okay, as a comparison of the federal poverty line. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about the federal poverty line a little bit, but the goal of the program is to get to above 200% on the federal poverty line. So you can see that that number increases over time for all the participants on average as they proceed in the program. And then that equates to a real dollar figure that decreases government expenditures. So as we're helping people get more income, that's also reducing their reliance on government expenditures. So that would be things like often it's childcare subsidies, food stamps, sometimes housing. So those are things that are real so government supports that are out there that then decrease over time as people increase their income. I'm giving you that number because we want to make a case for this. There's a real case to be made for investing in poverty alleviation. So now let's take the increase in the individual income increases, so that's the green, and their tax contribution. So let's add those numbers together. So it starts out, you see $10,299. So that's within 3 months after the program, there's an income increase. Okay, and then that increase continues until 12 months. You can see the cohort that just finished at $59,367,067. That's a per individual annual income. Okay, so that increase over time. And you can just kind of see how it's, let's take those two numbers and kind of add them together. There's a total benefits to society. We can then tell you, here's about how much it costs us to do that. So as a United Way program and the amount of staff time we put in, let's take a look, okay, let's subtract that out. And then you can see the net benefits to the society right there in the kind of in the middle. So the return on investment there gets these outrageous numbers. Just by thinking about, okay, if we're able to stick with folks through the whole 12 months, and they can continue to see the income increase, there's 1,889% return on investment. That's a pretty darn good return on investment, right? That's worth spending our money on. People are adding money to the economy. They're providing great jobs. They're filling job roles. They're helping their kids not only, grow up into a household that they're more stable, but then they have a chance to be more stable. And that's what the bottom boxes are. So then it gets really ridiculous. When we think about that, Sierra's got 4 kids. Josh has 2 kids. And LaDon has kids that are older now, but she's now got working with grandkids. So building their stability is going to ripple out. And we know there's a number that you can put on the anticipated cost to the community if kids grow up in poverty. And so that's what those numbers are at the bottom. Annually per kid, $42,555 would be an annual cost to society if a child remains in poverty below the 100% federal poverty line. So let's just keep looking at that, how that reduces over time as individuals gain more income. And then what that ends up rippling out to these ridiculous, 5,000% return on investment. So we're doing things here that are setting that ripple out for years to come. And it makes sense for these folks for sure, right? It also makes sense for these folks for sure. And those folks for sure, right? That we're all going to benefit from this and it's going to raise all boats. So that's what we're really here about with Bridging Forward. And I think the whole idea here today is keep that in mind, but then you'll hear about it through the personal impact of the stories here, right? They don't necessarily have to represent, hey, I'm contributing money to the community. I want you to hear from them about, hey, here's the impact this has made on me and my kids. So questions about that before we move on? I'm not starting with a little bit of numbers. It's kind of like, okay, wait a minute, this is a little too much to grapple with. But I want to put those two things in comparison. So with that enough, yeah, you can take that home. Here's what I actually want you to do with that is like, just kind of casually leave it in places like, like at a bus stop or, anywhere like that. So, so I do have, I have some questions up here, but I want to actually just have them start, maybe introduce themselves and share how you came into Bridging Forward. And then the question that I was going to start them with was, down to it here. What makes the cycle of poverty so difficult to escape without support? So maybe just introduce yourself again and how you came to Bridging Forward, and then give us your perspective on that. I think if you've got questions you'd like to ask, feel free to get ready to ask some questions. And if this conversation just goes in different directions, that's totally cool. Sound good? All right, whoever would like to start.
I can start. I'm Sierra Evanson and, I got started with Bridging Forward, through another program, actually. It was called Family Navigators. It was a program that was supposed to help, kids with IEPs, and stuff in the school system. And we were struggling with dealing with IEPs and just behaviors. And so I reached out to them. They had a little booth, at like an open house for the school. And I started in the program for like 3 or 4 months and then it closed. Zaira was, she works with Bridging Forward now, but she was working with Family Navigators and she's like, I think this program will help you. Come talk to me about it. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And so that's kind of how I got started in it. And then for me on, fighting, poverty, to me, the reason for me it was such a struggle without the support was because every single day you're in this fight. You are constantly battling. You don't have time to think about the next day or a week from now or a month, stuff like that. You don't have time to worry about that because you have to just focus on surviving that one day. And so, when you're in that fight, there's nothing else you can do. And so without that support that I felt, I would probably still be fighting every single day, no matter what. But now I can think ahead, I can plan ahead, I have saving goals and stuff like that I'm actually meeting, so.
Thank you.
I'm Ladonna Carroll and I first got started with Bridging Forward because I used to hear about it from a lot of places, but I went to get help one time with my rent and it was another place that referred me. And I even used to tell people about it, but I didn't really know what it was. So finally I decided, I should check it out, and so I did, and for what makes the cycle of poverty so difficult to escape without support, it just makes it, yeah, it's like real discouraged, like every day you're just discouraged kind of, and just not having anybody, I don't know, it just makes a world of difference when you're in something like that and it feels like a trap every day, just to have support and know that people care. It goes a long way.
And my name is Josh Nikas. I got in contact with the program. I had to have a couple surgeries, so I was kind of idle. I couldn't work. But kind of sitting around for 2 years. I'd gotten sober in the meantime off of alcohol. And I was talking to my landlord. I'd paid some bills and they had told me to go talk to Community Action here in Hastings. After talking with Katie for a amount of time, she directed me to Brady. He kind of mentioned the spiritual aspect. For me, it was more of a spiritual journey. Excuse me. When I got sobered up off of alcohol, Brady's program was kind of my life mission, I guess. And when I met him, it was kind of like, you talk about the support. For me, it was like a lifeline. The cycle of poverty for me was kind of like being in a pit of quicksand, and you can see a different view, but you can't quite get there and you don't know how to navigate where you're at. And for me, those waters had been comfortable for such a long time. I didn't think it was possible. Not only did I not think it was possible, I didn't think that there was people out there that really genuinely cared. After I talked to Brady and got to hear his vision and what he wanted to do within the community, that's kind of probably the first time I felt like I was at home somewhere. And it was a blessing for me and my children. My daughter's had to go through a cycle of addiction with her mother. So we've kind of navigated a lot of that, so to speak. So now she gets to see a different aspect of life, and she joins in as a part of it too. So she gets to meet great people like Sarah and Donna and interact with their kids. So as Brady spoke of before, it's kind of got a ripple effect on numerous levels. not only working at United Way, I also work for Hastings Public Schools, so I get to transport and bus little ones up to high school kids. I've transported Brady's kid to sporting events.
Sorry about
So I've gotten to see a well-rounded aspect, not only of what I've lived through personally, but what I've gotten to see within our community. As I mentioned, I got to sit back for 2 years. In those 2 years' time, I was walking around kind of like on a walkabout, I call it. And during that time, I got to see all the discrepancies within the community that I don't like, not only felt personally, but I wanted to fix within. And I feel like Bridging Forward gives me an opportunity to help the other side of the fence combat a problem that's been within our community for so long. And I get to offer perspective and I get to help hopefully make it a long lasting ripple effect. So that's why I'm here today.
I'll tell a quick story about that happened on Friday, with Josh and I, that, a guy that's interested in this next round of Bridging Forward. And, lives in Harvard, his wife is disabled, they have 4 kids. And the kids are not in the home, the kids have been removed from the home in September, through GHHS. So that's not a totally common thing, but that's one of the things that's happening in Bridging Forward. You'll have families that are trying to get their feet back underneath them so their kids can come back into their home. I could have had the conversation with this guy and he probably would have been like, oh, yeah, that sounds all right. But here I am, this tall white guy who does not necessarily have his experience. Josh was able to come in and be like, hey, let me tell you straight. Here's how it is from me. And so being able to have that perspective. And in this program, I rely on Sierra to answer questions for me. I relied on LaDonna to help and, hey, can you give a perspective about this? LaDonna has come to the orientation as well. So like it's I think probably one of our strengths is that we're admitting that we don't know everything and we don't have all the perspectives to figure this out, nor do we have the wherewithal to be able to say, I know exactly what it's been like in your shoes. But with the 3 of these folks here, we're pretty close to saying, yeah, I know exactly what it's been like in your shoes. And then we can bring in some other things through the United Way and through the things that we can learn about in the community, and from the rest of the collaborative work. So that worked out well, and I think he's probably gonna sign it.
Well, to piggyback off that, I feel like we do work really well together, in finding out what Brady's vision is and Jody being behind the scenes and seeing as a team what the overall objective is within the community. It really makes it bittersweet for me. Because for so long I have lived that life where, I was incarcerated for a length of time and not ever thinking that there's a way out of anything is pretty discouraging. And you get to a deep, dark place and then you run into people like this that you don't think exist and you start to see something different. And that's when, for me, life became really beautiful. I lost my mother a year ago, and I feel like without the support of the people that I have in my life today, I probably would have went backwards instead of forward. So that's what Bridging Forward gets to do for me, because I allow myself to be vulnerable and to tell people where I'm at, even if it feels uncomfortable like it does right now. This is not my type of thing, but it's necessary in order for the change to occur and to take place.
Oh, I'm gonna be pausing a little bit between questions. If you have questions sort of related to that one that they just spoke about, I think feel free. Jump in and interrupt.
Josh, I'm sensing with you is a big part of changing your life for the better, meshes with helping other people. Am I getting it right?
Yeah, I think for me, making this right, I not only get to do it right for myself, I get to do it right for my children. But I believe in the afterlife, I believe in karma, I believe in everything that's happened previous that has to do with everything going on currently. And for me, this is more, I'm from here, so born and raised here, my family, there was a lot of stuff that happened. We moved away in 1991, and when I came back, I always tried to get away from here. It was kind of weird. I was Lincoln or wherever, but I always found my way coming back here and, yeah, the past 10 years, it's just become kind of personal. And,
Mm.
I love this place. I love what it represents to me. And I feel like with what we are doing, we can all make it right for everything that's happened in our past. And it doesn't even have to be our past. It's just the past within the community. I feel like we can all clean it up together.
You're on the journey, use the word for.
Yes, sir.
That's something we have in common. I believe in a past life. We're on a journey and continue after this life. It's a whole other conversation. We go there. But,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Well, and what's,
Appreciate the question.
all three of them, I mean, it's 100% represented in front of you. Well, now I want you to share what you're doing and then share what you're doing just in terms of giving back to the community.
Well, I too struggle with addiction and, am in recovery. So as far as in giving back for the community, I work with other addicts in recovery now, and I'm going to school, for a drug and alcohol counselor. And, also just give support, anywhere. And because of the support that I received, I feel like I do want, it does pass on to other people. It's like something that you want to do, but they're giving us the ability or like the skills that we need to be able to have the ripple effect and to help more people. So it definitely isn't, even with my family, it's helped my family a lot, my kids. And then that's more people that, it's just like a on and on thing that will continue to grow. So it's just been really good in my life, in my family's life. So.
For me, I have become an advocate for others. I spent so many years without a voice and not really having a say in anything and feeling like my voice wouldn't matter. And now through my job, I go to the legislature a lot and I advocate. We've advocated on the federal level. I've done like press rallies at the Supreme Court in DC, outside there and stuff like that. And so I'm able to now give a voice for those who are still fighting every day and don't feel like they have time to give a voice. I can help give them a voice. And then also just encourage them to find their own voice. As well as advocating for a lot of different SNAP programs. That's what I'm currently doing with the legislature right now is advocating to make it so that way it's not so much of a stigma when you're on SNAP. And for people to understand that, it's something that sometimes you need and that's okay. And then I'm also, it's rippling down to my kids as well by showing them that they also have a voice. My oldest wants to be a politician right now because of right because of seeing me do my work. But it's showing them that they can have more in life, that they, before it was always, mom, do we have enough money for this? Do we have enough money for that? And now it's, hey, mom, I would like this. And so they no longer ask you, do we have enough money? And so to just change their mindset on it's okay to want things. But they would always apologize. They would always be like, we don't need it, it's okay. And that would always just break my heart. And so to give them that opportunity now, has been just incredible.
How old is the politician?
He is 10.
Oh, okay.
Probably would do a better job than.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna suggest that.
And he is quite good at arguing his way to get what he wants, so.
All right, so let's move to the next one. What impact has bringing forward made in your financial stability? So this doesn't necessarily have to be dollar figures, but just like, in terms of your money coming in, money going out, like how's that made a difference for you? And and maybe even where do you see it going to if it's not quite exactly where you want it yet?
Well, for me, I no longer live paycheck to paycheck. I didn't understand about money. I didn't understand about finances. I didn't know what credit was. I didn't know what a mortgage was. I didn't know how to obtain a car loan or any of that. I they got divorced, so I never understood any of it until years later. I'm trying to do all this stuff, and for me, not having to worry about paycheck to paycheck, like Sierra said, we used to go to the store once a week. We'd get the bare minimum. I've been a single parent for a long time, so that's just the way it was. My kids were used to it. You had a list. If it wasn't on a list, you didn't get it. And we didn't go unless you absolutely needed something, so that's different. Investing money into a retirement is different. Had no clue about any of that. I always heard my dad talk about it, but growing up in alcohol, there was no room for education, so to speak. Survival, kind of like Sarah said, was what I learned the most. So this is all brand new, but being able to do what I'm doing today, learning stuff from Brady and some older people in the community, Dave and March Peterson. I have learned about long-term financial stability. Their family has shown me what it's like to look at the overall objective and to leave something behind. I just bought my first property this last year. Started a business on my birthday. Getting ready to buy 3 more properties. My daughter has always struggled with school, so I feel like the financial part of being able to be free, so to speak, in a lot of aspects now has created stability for my children. She was a freshman. She's had troubles, like I stated before, that she has catapulted herself this year into being a senior. So she's going to graduate at the end of the year if she gets all of her Spanish and whatnot done. She's also working a full-time job. She has her own car. So there's a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have been able to provide or teach if I wasn't doing the things that I'm doing today. So I think that's the most beneficial part of the stability and how it's provided a leg up in my life and for my children.
So Kelly, you're talking about?
Yeah.
She impresses me. She acts older than she is.
Yeah, she's 16 going on 30.
Yeah.
But she's had a lot of hardship when she was young. Like I said, her mother had a string of addictions, so she got to see a lot of things that she wasn't supposed to see. And then with me fighting my side of things and my incarceration, when she was young, I went back into prison when she was 9 months old. I got out when she was 2.5, and I vowed to never leave her again, and she's been with me ever since. So she's grown up a lot, but my younger one has also got a different aspect too. She's gotten to see multiple levels without all the trauma and the bad stuff, so to speak. So it's been a well-rounded experience for both, but I feel like Callie has got a pretty good jump start on life, and she's got a pretty good head on her shoulders. Being involved in the program, seeing the effect it's had on the kids, seeing how everybody comes into the program in the beginning and how they leave at the end, and kind of the journey it takes people in between and why we have the numbers fall off. And on paper it kind of looks like what's going on, but if you're really involved with the behind the scenes, you see it's a bad and sad statistic, but what happens more often than not is people just not wanting to deal with themselves and make the changes that are necessary to do what's necessary for this program to be successful. So
So for me, the financial impact is, I grew up in a home of a mom that was a single parent, and she was on social security because she had a disability. So we lived on food stamps. Poverty was all I knew as a kid. So in turn, the same thing for me. I always, that was just normal to me. And, then living a life of addiction for like 20 years. I started at the age of 13. So I raised my kids in that, all the chaos and poverty and stuff like that. So my mother, she probably was never taught, like about budgeting or any of that kind of stuff. So that was something that she couldn't give me. So a lot of the stuff that I learned about finances was in Bridging Forward and, just like how to budget and, you know, what's going in, what's going out. They even gave me an opportunity to meet with a person at the bank that kind of gave me more insight on, because of connections that they have through the program. That gave me more insight on that, and, I have a savings now, which I haven't been able to have in, you know, probably ever, so. Probably ever. Yeah, so, that's nice, and not having to worry about, like, when something comes up, not panicking, wondering how I'm gonna pay for it. That's nice, it's a sense of ease. And now my kids, they were raised in that kind of environment, but now they're getting to see the other side of that, you know, and they're learning things like I, learned how to find out about a credit score in the program. And so now my kids have their credit score and they're trying to build their credit. And it's so crazy because my mom, she's, you know, she can be stuck in her ways a little bit sometimes, but even her, she has her credit score now and she knows about that a little bit. So it's like a ripple effect, you know? And I don't know, the financial stability has just been really good. And then having my allies that are a big support, just kind of like, you know, the support they give you and the kindness and just, I don't know, it's just been a blessing. So, but I think that's all I have for the financial.
For the financial impact for me, it's been huge. So when I started the program, I was, working at a job that I was making $10 an hour. And now I work at a job where I make over $25 an hour. And because of that, now I have a savings account. I never had a savings account before. I grew up kind of, so my dad, had a lot of medical problems growing up. We used to joke around that we grew up one leg in the hospital, one leg out, because we were there all the time. And so their way of dealing with things was just get another credit card to pay off the previous credit card and just keep that cycle up. And so I was terrified of credit cards because I was like, I'm just gonna end up the same way and I don't want that. And I ended up getting a little bit in debt. I had some bills in collection that my ally helped me with. And she helped me because she was like, okay, let's go and figure out what you have in collections. And I was like, nah, like, that's scary, I'm good. And she's like, no, we're going to the courthouse. So she took me to the courthouse, and then we got out of the courthouse, we're standing outside, and she's like, okay, now call them. And I was like, oh, I mean, I'll call them later, you know, she's like, nope, you're calling them now.
Right.
And I needed that push though, because then I was able, now I don't have any debt except for my house and my car. And which is just huge for me. But then, you know, giving that to my kids and showing them that like, it's okay to be able to buy something. You don't have to always stress about, okay, is this next purchase gonna set me back months? And so like giving them that financial stability, and then also just like, I mean, like Josh said, like I have a retirement fund now. Never had that before. You know, I'm gonna be 30 in April, and this is the first time I've done any of that stuff. And so to prepare for the future makes it so I can breathe easier. And like I live with my mom, after my dad died, we moved in together, well, before he died, we moved in together so I could help take care of him. And she, you know, I grew up, you know, with SNAP and food boxes and stuff like that. And so that's all mom knows. And, she, through this program, I've been able to get off of SNAP. And that was terrifying for both of us at first, because we had been on it for so long. But to be able to be like, we can actually buy our own food, like, we're okay. It's been such a huge, just like eye-opening blessing that like, you know, it's gonna be okay. And so to teach my kids that, and so when they're so young, and for them not to have to grow up the way I did, of constantly worrying about where my next is gonna come from, I think that has been the hugest financial impact for us.
Thank you for that, all of you. Any questions about the financial stability piece? Anybody wants to add? I'm gonna ask you all at the end that we do a thing in Bridging Forward, appreciations and acknowledgements. It's a chance for people to, you know, to really let somebody know what it was that they did that made a difference for you, that person. So at the end, I'm gonna ask you to appreciate and acknowledge our three guest speakers here. So be thinking about that, because I really appreciate, you know, that they're kind of giving themselves to you. So let's be sure to give you back. Who else in your life has been impacted by that? You've talked about it a little bit, but if you want to go into anything else here, I think that'd be great. We've heard a little bit about each of your families, but anything else you want to add about who else in your life has been impacted?
I think for me, to be honest with you, my whole family has been impacted. From a young age, like, I don't know, it's weird. I've always had special relationships with my grandparents, certain aunts and uncles. So when I got in trouble, of course, I was always labeled the troubled one, but the one everybody favored and whatnot. So there's always this stigma and shit. Pardon. But I really feel like when I got sober, people really didn't know how to act or react now that there was a brand new me, so to speak. But 6 months after I got sobered up, my brother got clean off of meth and heroin. Shortly after that, I got to help a couple other people. And then it was kind of weird because, as I stated, I was disabled for a couple years. I was kind of taking in people off the street. I had 3 people in my home in that time. I fostered a child that was going through some hardship, was in through the courts and whatnot. He got out of all that, graduated high school. Now I get to work with youth. Yesterday I had a call from a 19-year-old, been working with him for a year and a half, off and on, as he has struggled and come out of it. And now he brought somebody else to me. I get to work with kids and my daughters. Adults that I know are having issues, and today I'm getting phone calls saying, hey, is there anything you can think of that may help? Or I get to impact a lot of lives today. The children on my bus, I feel like, are the most impactful. The little ones that are getting away from mom and dad for the first time, that are scared of the world. I get to see them and be a part of their lives. And then I get to meet people like Sierra, even though I kind of knew her, but I started working with, I'd see her kids at school, and then I started working with her kids in the program. And now there was a snowstorm. Her mom was kind of caught at home. She had to deal with her son in Omaha. So I got to go take milk and some other stuff that was needed so that they wouldn't have to get out. That's the stuff that I get to do today that impacts other people. I don't look for anything when I do things like that. To me, this is more retribution for the life that I once lived. So it's a blessing and an honor to be able to get to do what I get to do. And as we talked about the ripple effect in the beginning, I feel like the more we do here, and the more it has to impact people such as yourselves. And if people like you join people like us, and our community strengthens its web, it's hard to put a monumental number on that impact overall of what it could be if we all believe in what we're discussing here today. So
Thank you.
I would say for me, it's anybody I come in contact with, it could be like my coworkers or some people that I work with. But so it has an effect on a lot of different people, but also definitely my family and my grandkids, because they won't have to grow up. They won't know about a lot of stuff that me and my kids knew about. So that's, yeah. But anybody I come in contact with that, needs the information, I definitely pass it on, like for budgeting and financial stuff and just all kind of, yeah.
I think that's a really big piece that when we said this maybe in the beginning, that folks that are struggling and overwhelmed are often surrounded by folks who are struggling and overwhelmed. And so there is this, there's definitely a division, right, between the haves and the have-nots necessarily, whether that's the right way to say it or not. And so I think that when we have advocates in the community who are learning, like, oh, hey, this is possible, you're able to make a difference and make an impact on people that we're not able to get. I think I said in the beginning that, when we opened the doors on Bridging Forward, we were very surprised at the lack of people walking in. We thought, oh, here's all we gotta do. We gotta put this great program together. People are gonna come in and wanna get out of poverty. Didn't work that way. We had a real struggle recruiting folks and getting people in. I don't think that's gonna be an issue anymore. I think we have not had to work very hard for this third program, and we're probably gonna have 15 people tomorrow night, which is bigger than we've ever had. So I think that's an impact of folks like Ladonna and Sierra and Josh being out and speaking about it, but also saying, hey, there's some reality to this. It's not just a pipe dream. And what's good about it too is that I'm sure as soon as you're introducing it to somebody, you're also saying something like, hey, it's hard work, or you gotta do the stuff, because that's a key piece to get as well, so.
I would say, the biggest impact for me, definitely my kids, like, so for example, United Way had an event, this was when it was warmer out, because they had painted the sidewalk by the lake. And, so I took my kids out there, and my kids, they, out of the four of them, three of them have behavioral issues. I would never have brought them out to the event at the beginning of the program. It would not have gone well. I remember there was many times we would come on Monday nights, and I would basically be almost in tears because of just how extreme their behaviors were and how out of control that it had gotten. And Josh was amazing with them. Brady was amazing with them. Like everybody at United Way was just really good at like getting down on their level and helping them also get through their issues. And now I can take them anywhere and I don't have to worry. Like we went to the lake thing and they were perfectly fine. I was so nervous, but they acted just fine. And now like I'll take them to the store with me. Before I used to just grocery shop by myself because I was like, I can't deal with that. But now I'll take all four of them with me grocery shopping. And so I get to teach them healthy things, like how to buy healthy food, because they would just used to me bringing stuff home to them, and usually it would be boxed and canned food. Well, now we can get fresh fruits and vegetables. And so I'm impacting their health as well. And I would also say, my mom has definitely been impacted. And then like the other two have said, when I talk to people in the community about it, or I see like a friend struggling or something, I'm like, hey, this is a program that you really need to try out. I'm still working on my best friend. She's thinking about it, but I'm still working on her. But I'm also able to show her like things of, instead of going and wasting money on this, like, hey, let's think about this, let's think about long term. And so she's been able to start switching things as well, and slowly making an impact on her and her kids, who are like my kids. Her kids are just like mine. And so it's just to see that spread through the community is amazing. And then I'm also able to impact by advocating and by helping other people find their voice. The more people who use their voice and can advocate for themselves and make change, the better the world's gonna be. And so I'm able to help because, coming from a spot of not being an advocate and not being, and being in the fight every day, to being able to show my voice, that gives a whole other perspective. And, I found that like people who, have gone through college and have like gone through degrees for advocating and stuff like that, they're great advocates, but they don't always know all the background. They can't always bring in that piece. And so by connecting other people who have a different background, who can bring in those emotional pieces, those, very specific, no, this actually affects me piece. I feel like that also just creates a huge ripple.
Brag about the benefits club thing.
Yeah.
It's not happened yet, but it's gonna. So Sierra trained herself in using a thing called the benefits cliff calculator that's put on by the Federal Reserve of Atlanta. So it's a real tool. The benefits cliff is this idea that as you increase your income, you become ineligible for some government supports, food stamps, childcare, housing. And that should make sense, right? I'm making more money. I don't need those things. But what happens is that the supports come too suddenly. And often at a time when it's not, the qualifying number is not really the right number. Like in order to afford childcare these days, you need this amount. The benefits cut out at this amount. And so the benefits cliff is where you increase your income and your benefits drop off, but you can't afford now to pay for those things that you're getting assistance for in the past. So there's this, it's pretty robust calculator, and there's several of them, that, Sierra trained herself in, and the goal here is that you can forecast those changes. And you can put in your zip code in it, and you can select the different benefits that should be receiving, and it'll give you a chance to say, okay, what happens if I get this much increase? Here's the amount I need to budget for. There's other things that happen. I could have those conversations with people. It's so fantastic that we have Sierra who can have those conversations with people, because now it's like, okay, been there, done that, and can explain things a little bit better and put it in people's perspective. So now we're able, she actually has a referral card on a referral platform that we're using now called Find Help. So we can refer people to Sierra to actually sit down one-on-one and go through this with folks. It's happened a couple of times. We're gonna start ramping up pretty well.
Yes, and the understanding the benefits calculator is so important because, so, and this is before I started the program. I had gotten a 50-cent raise at work, which equated to $80 more a month that I was getting, which is great. But when I reported that to SNAP, because you have to report every income increase, I lost $200 in SNAP. Those numbers don't add up. And so it was worse for me to take that raise than if I would have just stayed where I was. And so to understand and to help people understand that better, so that way they can not be in those situations, because I mean, that caused complete panic for me and set me back for months of trying to figure out how to make that work. And so to help kind of alleviate that, because it kind of predicts in the future. So like it'll say, you know, in 2 or 3, you'll have it for 2 or 3 months. So then you have 2 or 3 months to come up with a game plan of what you're gonna do. So that way it doesn't affect you as much when you lose those benefits.
Questions about any of that?
I think that'd be a good presentation to do to the cohort, right? Because we have a lot on personal financial management, but I think that is very important, what you just talked about. There's a lot of people get caught into that, right? Yay, a 50-cent raise, but that's $200 less than I would normally be getting, so.
Yeah.
Your head about thinking about, okay, do I wanna take this? Because I know even where job that my husband was in, giving raises, and he people said, can't take it.
Right.
Can't take it, because they didn't wanna try and, they didn't wanna lose those benefits. So how do you change that mentality to go, that's really important, I think.
I think to change that mentality, you really got to know it ahead of time and plan ahead.
Mhm.
You know, when they cut your benefits and they let you know, I mean, they're cutting it with, you have maybe a month at the very most, if not, usually it's like a week, 2 weeks type, depending on when you reported it, depending on when the next benefits happen.
And you haven't saved.
Right.
You don't have
And
that.
so by doing the cliff calculator, you have that, okay, this is when they should start cutting the benefits down. So now what do I need to do to prepare for that? And that was one thing the program really helped me flip my mindset, because Brady and I walked through it with my stuff before I trained in it. And it really helped me flip my mindset of, okay, now what do I need to worry about in the future? And that was so important for me to really start thinking ahead instead of constantly being in the fight.
I remember that, I'm so glad she said that, because remember, as she introduced herself, that is the challenge. Living in poverty is seeing into the future like this. There's so much day by day I gotta worry about, so I'm just worrying about today. And so a huge piece of what the allies are doing and what they're doing in this work is giving them the space to think about these things I'm putting off that are in the future. So let's maybe switch to that, because I want to make sure that you hear from them. What was the impact of the allies? The question was, what did their allies provide that was a game changer for you? However you want to start, maybe we start with Donna and then Sheila.
Okay. I would say how it impacted me was like just the love and support and knowing that somebody believed in me it gave me a lot more confidence in myself because that was something that I lacked most of my life, you know? Just because of everything I went through, I feel like I had a like low self-worth or self-esteem. So that just kind of like helped me. Sorry, I hate crying in front of people. But it just kind of helped me with my confidence, like even this right here, I wouldn't have been able to do this because I used to get so much bad anxiety just to even be around people because I didn't want, I wanted to blend in so people wouldn't notice me. But just that support and love has just helped me grow as a person, to believe in myself, to even be able to go back to school. Because I didn't think I could do that, you know, I didn't think I could do the things that I'm doing now, and just the encouragement that they gave me, you know, it helped a lot of things. So, yeah, just grateful for that.
I would say for me, the knowledge. So like with, as I shared how my dad was in the hospital a lot, you know, my mom was working 2, 3 jobs. And so, you know, we didn't learn how to change a bike tire. We didn't learn how to take care of little things around the house. And then my dad died when, I was, you know, about 5, 6 years ago. And so I didn't have my own house at that point, and so I knew nothing about owning a house. And one of my allies, he has been a godsend for us. He came over and he showed me how to change the bike tires on my kids' bikes, because I used to just buy up a new bike. Because it's like, what else am I gonna do? You know, and I would, and he taught me how to, we had the tub, it kept leaking, and, you know, so it was causing water damage, and then it was also, the faucet was also leaking. And he was like, these are really simple fixes, here, let me show you. And so, and now I can fix it on my own. And so I'm saving money. And then, you know, my allies also just being there with that support of like, you know, for either forcing me to make the phone call and being there and saying that, you know, you can make this phone call. But then also just having someone to, I think, to talk about the problems and being able to like game plan and plan for the future was probably the best out of everything that they've been there for me. Because like Rick said, it allows you that space to think about it. And so like a lot of times with our meetings, like they wouldn't know the answer, and that's okay. Like they would just be like, okay, have you thought about it like this? And so then it'll be like, no, I haven't. I haven't thought about this problem at all. And so we were able to really plan out and prepare. And so just having that brainstorming was probably one of the biggest helps as well.
That's one of the biggest things that the model says is the reason why you do the allies piece is because of the perspectives are different. Perspectives of people that are coming from a different social economic class is different. And so it's not like there's somebody's got a magic wand, but just talking it out and seeing things through a different lens is often really helpful. Josh wasn't in a program that had necessarily allies, but have had some people, I don't know, whatever you'd like to share around what you've either seen with the other programs or yourself.
Well, for me, I was kind of like the guinea pig, I guess. He had a program, I felt really strong about it. I guess my allies were more Brady, Jody, Chandra at the time, Zyra, Aaron, and people like you guys that I met, you know, Andy, Tammy, Steph, Dan, thank you. And having conversations with people that I normally most likely would not have had if I wouldn't have been in that setting. So I felt like I had a more well-rounded perspective per se, because for me in the beginning, it was really tough as I spoke when I was down with my surgeries and whatnot. I had to kind of break away from the system altogether because the system was trying to tell me that I was disabled, that I wouldn't be able to work. I would no longer physically be able to do the things that I was doing. So I was going through a lot personally. Meeting them, it gave me the confidence to not only feel like I could do more than what they were telling me, but to know that I could do more. The last thing I wanted to do was sit in my house for 15, 20 years and watch myself deteriorate. The 2 years at the time had been hard enough. But I feel like now, like Brady said, we're getting into the third program. So for me, I feel like I consistently work a program because I worked it the first time with all of them and now I'm, the second one and I get to be that perspective that sees all the way around from our lifestyle, but then I get to hear other perspectives from those that I'm having contact with in the program. And then I get the third perspective from the guy I'm working with or the people in the office. So I feel like I'm pretty blessed all the way around because I get to see and hear a lot, but I get to apply it daily because I'm constantly working with people that need help. So for me, it's like I got the best job in the house, I feel like. I get to help people on a level at nighttime, on a weekend, on holidays. Like I don't get cut off by certain aspects like others do. So for me, it's a well-rounded blessing all the way around that I get to be a part of and do the things that I get to do.
We're gonna be running out of time, but I want you all to give some stuff back to them, and some ways of thanking them for being here. So if you could, however you'd like to, and whoever would like to, maybe let's have a few of them, but just appreciate and acknowledge what they've provided for you and being here this morning. I know I'm super grateful, and this is, it's always great to hear you all, but it's also really fantastic, just how willing you are to share of your experience and to talk about difficult things. And so the vulnerability that you let yourself have up here today, I know that makes a difference for me, and I've already been around you for years. So to have service making a difference for these folks. So I'm really grateful for you being here today.
I want to add, I have listened to you, and I know you all, but I've listened to you talk about what the allies gave to you and what the program gave to you and things like that. But it needs to be acknowledged that you guys are the ones that showed up and you did the work and you picked up the phone and called and you are the ones that had to be willing to make those changes. And that needs to be acknowledged that you guys did that. And I think it's just amazing. So, I would echo my gratitude for you to be vulnerable this morning and to share and, but also just for showing up for yourselves and to be willing to make those changes. So you guys are amazing.
And I want to say as an ally, you guys are just a blessing in my life too. I mean, I was really nervous to get into this program, but I appreciate all of you and all the experiences you've given as much to me is like, I feel like I haven't given much back, but I'm trying, but I've learned a lot from you guys and you're a blessing, all for you, well, everybody.
I don't have anything really new to say. I would echo all that. I'm highly impressed with you coming on here and being vulnerable and sharing what you did. And also, I see myself as being part of the journey. We were all on a journey together. I'm being part of undoing, and everyone's getting better.
I wanted to just say that it's such a huge gift to me to hear just your commitment to giving to others and giving back what you learned and sharing whether it's just a little piece of information or an inspiration to try or support when somebody else is struggling. It's a real accountability thing to me, actually, because I feel like I take so many things for granted and don't give back as much as I should. It's really a gift to be called into the joy of giving back. And I just thank you for that.
I just want to acknowledge, first off, sharing your story and doing that. I think that is hard, to do that. So I just appreciate your honesty on that. And then I think we all have things in our own lives that we have to be brave about, that we know that are hard, that we're avoiding, whether it's conversations or phone calls or, all of that. So I feel like you've given me a little bit of courage, like, hey, I think I can tackle that. I think that, the repercussions or whatever, or why am I procrastinating that? So I feel like you've given me a little spark to like, hey, get it done. So thanks.
Thank you all. Appreciate this time. Appreciate people being here. Anything else for anybody? You good?
I took a lot for granted. I made a lot of people wait.
You became a healer and a builder and a creator instead of becoming a destroyer and parasite. You could have gone two directions. You could have become
I know, I just hope that people understand the value of time
Mhm.
as much as I have come to learn.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And those that sacrifice so much to give us what we have, and we don't even. It's not even a part of our thought process. And then your mother passes, or your father. And those things get brought into perspective really quick. The woman sacrificed everything. So if I continue to do what I'm doing, I will continue to sacrifice everything I have for everybody else that needs it. Cause I know what this life means to me today.
good guy.
Thank you, sir.
Let's end with a little prayer and thank you. Dear Lord, thanks for the power of this day and the power of this morning and the power of being able to see this community and all the different elements and the ways we can grow from each other and with each other. And thank you for giving us the time to learn and listen and to lead with the voice of what's possible for us all here if we join together and find ways to lift everyone up. And by doing so, lift ourselves up. Amen. All right.